It's preparation for you to become your brother's free nanny, my mother sneered, her voice dripping with condescension. My brother leaned back in the chair like a king surveying his kingdom, grinning as though my life's purpose had always been to serve his children. Their laughter cracked against my ribs, and for a moment, I thought I might suffocate from the weight of their mockery. But instead of breaking, I folded my lips into a quiet smile. Hi everyone, my name is Maribel Cross, I'm 29 years old. And if you think betrayal feels sharp, wait until you taste the silence that follows it. Do you know the ache of walking into your own home after months away, only to find it unrecognizable? The place I had bought with sleepless nights and endless overtime was no longer mine. The walls, once alive with framed photos of my travels, had been stripped bare and repainted in bright, childish colors. Cartoon animals danced where my maps of distant cities once hung. In the living room, my brother's kids' toys cluttered the floor, while a row of cribs lined what used to be my study. The smell of disinfectant mixed with crayon wax clung to the air. My books, my furniture, my life, erased. They hadn't asked me. Not once. They had carved their entitlement into my walls as if I had ceased to exist. I let my hand glide over the chipped frame of my old doorway, fingers trembling, not from fear but from the quiet birth of something cold. I understand, I replied softly, suppressing the laugh clawing up my throat. And then, silence. A silence so loaded it made them uncomfortable. An hour later, chaos ripped through the house. My father's panicked shout came first. Why are the police here? His voice cracked, echoing down the hallway like a confession. My mother's shrill scream followed. Maribel, what did you do? I stood still in the center of my former kitchen, the hum of their daycare refrigerator rattling against my leg, the tiles sticky from juice spills that weren't mine. Outside the window, blue and red lights pulsed against the night, painting streaks across the walls that once belonged to me. The sound of car doors slamming reverberated through the air. Calm washed over me like a tide. For the first time since stepping inside this house, the air felt like mine again. And deep down, I knew, this was only the opening scene. The knock wasn't polite. It was the kind that demanded entry. My father froze halfway to the door, his hand trembling on the knob, while my mother hovered behind him, clutching her apron like it was a shield. My brother's smirk from earlier had dissolved into something uglier, nervous, twitchy, like a boy caught with stolen candy. The officer's voice carried through the wood. Open up. Now. When the door swung open, the night spilled in, blue and red lights flickering across every surface, uniforms standing tall against the backdrop of my stolen home. The officers stepped inside with practiced authority, their eyes scanning the daycare setup, the cribs, the toys, the mismatched permits taped sloppily to the wall. Whose name is on the deed of this property? The taller officer asked, his tone even but edged with steel. My parents glanced at each other, mouths opening, closing, like fish gasping for air. My brother tried to fill the silence, puffing his chest. It's a family house. We all. No, I cut in, my voice slicing clean through the tension. My heart pounded, but my words didn't waver. This property is mine. Purchased with my earnings. Here's the title deed. I pulled the folded document from my bag, the paper slightly wrinkled but pristine in its truth. The officer took it, scanning the name at the top. His nod was subtle, but it shifted the entire balance of the room. My mother's face drained of color. Maribel, how could you? How could I? I echoed softly, stepping closer. How could you? The children upstairs began to stir, their cries drifting into the thick silence. My brother's jaw tightened, his bravado collapsing as the officer turned back to him. You've been operating a childcare business here without a license and without the owner's consent. My father stumbled over his words, but the officer didn't need an answer. His pen scratched across his notepad, final, unrelenting. I stood motionless, watching their empire of entitlement unravel thread by thread. In that moment, I realized silence was never weakness. Sometimes it was the sharpest blade. The taller officer's pen clicked shut, the sound echoing louder than it should have in the suffocating silence. My mother clutched her apron tighter, her knuckles white, as if sheer grip could hold together everything crumbling around her. My brother lunged forward, his voice cracking. You can't just walk in here and shut us down. This is my family's house. The officer raised a hand. Calm. Steady. Authority sharpened into steel. Sir, the deed clearly states this property belongs to Miss Maribel Cross. Without her consent, everything you've established here is unlawful. That includes operating a childcare facility without state approval. The words struck like gavel blows. I watched my brother's face flush deep red, his nostrils flaring. He glanced toward my parents, searching for backup. My father muttered, almost pleading, "It was for the children, Maribel. For your nieces and nephews. We thought you'd understand." Understand. The word twisted in my chest. My memories of years overseas flashed through me. Dusty roads, long nights caring for strangers' children, sacrifices made in silence, while they turned my sacrifice into servitude. I stepped closer, my voice low but piercing. You didn't ask. You didn't care. You wanted me as your nanny, not your daughter. The officer glanced at me, then at my parents, the disgust in his eyes hidden only by professionalism. He clipped the notepad back onto his belt. We'll be issuing citations for illegal operation. You'll also need to vacate the premises immediately. If you fail to comply, further legal action will follow. My mother gasped, a sound halfway between outrage and despair. My brother cursed under his breath, but the officer's hand hovering near his holster silenced him instantly. I remained still, rooted in the eye of their storm. The hum of the daycare fridge rattled against my leg again, its drone now sounding like a requiem. Upstairs, the children's cries grew louder, confused, unsettled, innocent. I exhaled slowly, the kind of breath you only take when the weight pressing on your chest finally begins to lift. And for the first time, I saw it, the cracks in their control widening, ready to shatter. The flashing lights outside had already gathered attention. Neighbors stood in the dark, arms crossed, whispering behind cupped hands. A few recorded on their phones, the glow of screens capturing every crack in my family's perfect image. My mother hissed at me through clenched teeth, "Look what you've done. Everyone's watching. You've humiliated us." Her words didn't sting, they liberated. For years, I had been the quiet shadow, the dutiful daughter, the easy one to overlook. Tonight, the shadow was stepping into the light, and they couldn't bear the glare. The officer gestured toward the front door. "We'll need everyone outside while we process this." His tone wasn't cruel, but it left no room for negotiation. My brother stormed out first, his phone glued to his ear. "I'll fix this," he barked, though his trembling hand betrayed him. My father shuffled after him, muttering prayers under his breath. My mother lingered, shooting daggers at me with her eyes, until the officer's sharp nod forced her to follow. I walked out last. The cool night air brushed my skin like a cleansing tide. Blue and red lights painted the street, reflecting off windows, off curious stares. For once, I didn't shrink beneath them. A neighbor's voice rose above the murmurs. "Isn't that Maribel's house? I thought she owned it." The officer's reply carried clearly, intentional or not. "She does. She's the rightful owner." The weight of truth hung in the air, undeniable. My parents' faces stiffened, their facade crumbling under the scrutiny of the crowd. My brother's children, clutching their grandmother's skirt, looked on with wide, confused eyes. I met my mother's gaze, calm, steady. "You told me it was preparation. But the truth is, you wanted me caged here, raising children that aren't mine, while my life dissolved." Her lips trembled, but no words came. The officers began taping a notice to the front door, bold letters, impossible to ignore. "Cease and desist." The neighbors kept whispering, the world watching. And for the first time, my parents were the ones standing small in the middle of the street. The notice on the door glided under the porch light like a scarlet letter. My brother tried ripping it down, but the officer's sharp command, "Leave it," froze him mid-motion. His shoulders stiffened, his pride collapsing with every neighbor's watchful eye. My mother tugged at his arm, whispering frantically, "Don't make it worse. Not here." But it was too late. The damage wasn't just legal, it was public. I stood a few steps away, the night breeze curling around me. For years, I had been invisible in this family. Tonight, I wasn't just seen. I was undeniable. The officer handed me a copy of the report, his tone respectful. "Miss Cross, you'll want to keep this. It documents your ownership rights and their violations. The paper was light in my hands, yet it felt heavier than gold. Proof. Legitimacy. My voice, at last, inked into the official record. My father's voice cracked, desperate now. Maribel, think of the children. Where will they go tomorrow? They need this. I looked past him to the faces of my nieces and nephews, innocent eyes, clinging to their grandmother's skirt. My heart wavered, but only for a second. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen from me. You should have thought of that before using my life as your foundation, I said quietly. My brother spat onto the pavement, glaring at me with a hatred that trembled on the edge of fear. You'll regret this. But even as he said it, I saw the truth. He wasn't threatening me. He was drowning, thrashing for control in a current he could no longer command. The officers began retreating to their cars, their presence leaving behind a silence sharper than their words. Neighbors slowly drifted back to their porches, whispers trailing like smoke. I remained where I was, my report clutched firmly, my pulse steady. The house loomed behind me, no longer theirs, no longer a playground of entitlement. For the first time, I felt it breathe again. My home. And beneath the stillness, a new thought surfaced. Justice wasn't finished. It was only unfolding. The house stood silent the next morning, its walls heavy with the remnants of chaos. The police tape still clung to the front door, swaying slightly in the breeze. My parents and brother had vanished at dawn, their departure rushed, as if fleeing from the humiliation they could no longer bear. I walked slowly through the rooms, the echo of my own footsteps unfamiliar in a place that had once been mine. The cartoon murals mocked me from the walls. Cribs sat in neat rows where my bookshelves had once lived. My brother's arrogance lingered in every misplaced toy, every sticky stain, every corner that had been claimed without my consent. But this time, I wasn't just a visitor in my own home. I was the rightful owner standing on reclaimed ground. I opened my laptop at the kitchen counter, still sticky with spilled juice, and pulled up an email I'd drafted while overseas. It was to a property lawyer, detailing every penny I had poured into this house, every record of ownership, every piece of evidence. With one click, I sent it. The weight of years of silence lifted, replaced with something steadier, resolve. As I walked outside, neighbors paused in their morning routines. Some nodded subtly in acknowledgement, others offered sympathetic half-smiles. Their gazes no longer pitted me. They respected me, or at least understood me. By afternoon, my phone buzzed. The lawyer's voice carried through the receiver, calm and deliberate. You've done the right thing, Maribel. We'll initiate proceedings for damages. They used your property for profit. That gives us leverage. Profit. The word sank deep. They hadn't just turned my home into a playground for my brother's kids. They had built a business on my sacrifice. Money earned on my name, without my consent. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly. The betrayal felt sharper than ever, but so did my clarity. The house would be mine again, not as a hollow victory, but as a monument to everything they underestimated in me. I whispered to myself, almost like a vow, they took my silence for weakness. Now they'll see what silence builds. And in the distance, thunder rolled, soft, but promising. The first legal notice went out within the week. I received a copy in my inbox, clean, precise, merciless. An authorized operation of business on private property. Compensation owed to legal owner. My lawyer's language carried the weight of iron. I imagined the scene when my brother opened that envelope. His swagger evaporating, his face paling as he realized this wasn't just about police humiliation anymore. This was about money, the one language he respected, the one currency he worshipped. By the weekend, the fallout had begun. Neighbors whispered louder now, no longer behind hands but in open conversation. Some even approached me at the market. We always wondered how they managed it without asking you. Good for you, Maribel. Each word was a balm, though I didn't let myself savor it. My parents, once pillars of neighborhood pride, now avoided the street. They shuffled quickly to their car, heads down, shoulders hunched, their kingdom of control turned into a spectacle of shame. My brother was louder, angrier. He stormed into the driveway one evening, fists clenched. You've ruined us. The fines, the lawyers, the reputation, it's all on you. I didn't flinch. I stood in the doorway, the cease and desist still taped behind me like a shield. No, it's on you. You built on what wasn't yours. You treated me as a servant, not a sister. Actions have consequences. He sneered, spit hitting the gravel. You'll regret this when the family turns on you. But even as he said it, I could see the cracks. My parents lingered behind him, silent, avoiding my eyes. They weren't defending him anymore. They were drowning in their own choices, realizing the tide had shifted. That night, I sat in the quiet of my home, the walls still scarred with paint I hadn't chosen. I pressed my hand against them, whispering to the house itself, "We're almost whole again." The storm outside rattled the windows. It sounded like applause, nature clapping for a truth long hidden, finally brought to light. I knew the final act wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. About peace. And tomorrow, they would face it. The court hearing was brief, almost anticlimactic. My lawyer spoke with measured confidence, laying out every record, every photo, every bank statement that tied my family's scheme together. My brother sat rigid, his suit wrinkled, sweat beading at his temple. My parents looked smaller than I'd ever seen them, their voices hushed, their eyes fixed on the floor. When the judge declared the ruling, damages awarded, property rights upheld, I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I simply exhaled, a breath years in the making. Outside the courthouse, reporters lingered, their cameras capturing my brother's scowl, my parents' silence. I walked past them without a word. Silence, once my prison, was now my crown. Over the following weeks, the transformation began. The garish murals were painted over, replaced with soft tones that let light breathe into every corner. The cribs were donated to a local shelter. The toys, boxed and handed off to families in need. Piece by piece, I peeled away their fingerprints, reclaiming my home, not as it was before, but as something new, something mine. And yet, revenge was not the taste that lingered. It was clarity. I used part of the compensation to fund a scholarship for young women volunteering overseas, women like me, who gave so much only to come home to so little. It wasn't about money. It was about legacy, about building where others had tried to break me. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the rooms glowed with gold, I sat at the kitchen counter, clean now, no sticky stains, no foreign fridge humming. Just quiet. My quiet. Through the window, I could see my parents walking past the street. They didn't look up. My brother trailed behind them, his phone clutched like a lifeline, his empire shrunken to nothing. I didn't wave. I didn't call out. I simply pressed my palm flat against the cool countertop and whispered, almost to myself, "You tried to erase me, but all you did was remind me how strong I am." And with that, the story closed.